Welcome to the Chatta Box series. My name's Tanya from WA and this is my colleague Agnes from Victoria and also looking after Tasmania. So today we'd like to welcome Fiona Strahan, a project coordinator from Disability Voices Tasmania.
Hello.
Hi, welcome Fiona. It's a pleasure to have you today. So I will start off with the first question. Disability Voices Tasmania grew out of a pilot program that was initiated or launched a year ago. Can you please take us back to the beginning and just share with us the ideology behind the project?
Well, it's interesting because the project has lots of beginnings. The first one was in about 2016, where the Social Action Research Centre from Anglicare looked at why does Tasmania not have a collective voice of people with disability. And then from there was a research project done by another organisation into looking what might a collective voice look like. And then from that report, the state government organised some funding for the pilot project. And what was interesting through that was almost like the universal nature of people with disabilities struggling to have a voice, but not just to have the voice in terms of saying what people want to say, but to have it heard and acted upon. And if you look, like even PWA, which is People with Disabilities Australia, has in their, after their name, they have a voice of our own. And if you Google, you'll find heaps of disability-run organisations about voice. So there's a universal experience of not being heard. And when we talk about voice, when we did the project and now, we talk about voice being in all sorts of forms. It can be signed, it can be augmented, it can be drawn. It's not just about speaking and writing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tanya, did you have a question for Fiona?
Yeah. So what are some of the key outcomes the project has been able to achieve in the pilot phase?
I think the first thing was we connected with in Tasmania we have 23.6% of the population identify as having a disability, which is close to a quarter. And what we were really successful in was connecting with people with disability who were not connected to disability services. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the first things. The other thing was that we connected with over 300 people who shared their stories. The other thing that we did that was successful was that we asked people, if you want a collective voice, what type of training or capacity building or education do you feel that you would want to be able to contribute to it? And so we were then able to match workshops to that. So we held workshops across Tasmania in three regional areas, and Hobart and Outer Hobart. So that was great. And from that, what we saw was that people used those skills. They were very practical skills and used those almost immediately. So our best example is a group in a regional area where there had been the beginnings of a access advisory committee in the local government, and then that fell through, and this group of people did a 2-day workshop on being able to identify solutions to access problems. Sometimes we're very good at saying, there's no ramp, there's no this, there's no that, but this was like, okay, well, we could do that, so that people were part of the problem solving. And often that's something that gets forgotten about people with disabilities, is that 9 times out of 10 people know the solution. Yeah. And so that group worked together, did this 2-day workshop over a weekend, worked together, and then went and approached the council about getting its access and inclusion group back up, and it did, and they've had influence. So that's where what we want to see is it's not that people did training and then waited until a project the pilot project offered something else, but they went off with that training and influenced their own local government area.
That's fantastic. That's so empowering. And like you said, it has to be a kind of an action reaction. So they're really implementing, you know, the things that they have learned right away, which is fabulous. So you guys have been funded for an additional 3 years, which is very exciting. So what's in the pipeline? What is going to happen, I guess? Well, not that you can predict every single thing, but what is in the pipeline for you guys?
Right. Well, the first, we've got two kind of focus. One is we're going to become a DPO. So we've got one of our areas of work is to skill and resource the current planning group through the process of incorporation and then begin that process. And the other is that each year we'll pick 3 projects and then invite people with disabilities interested in those to come together, identify a plan, look at skill development, and also looking at connecting people with mentoring. It really kind of, one of the things we want to make sure that although a workshop might be, we might only run it 3 times, that we don't want to have a one-off impact, that we want to make sure that after someone has done something with us or with, you know, that there is an ongoing connection. Doesn't mean that they have to become a member or anything, but that they are, yeah, they're connected. So the first thing we're doing is are some Zoom workshops coming up at the end of this month, and we're doing 2 lots of a very successful workshop last year, which was using your story to influence decision makers, and the other one was developing your pitch, and they're a pair of 2-hour workshops which are run over 2 days over a week. And in that Zoom meeting we've got professional captioning, 1 set of workshops we've got interpreters, Auslan interpreters. The purpose of those workshops are, often people with disabilities are asked, you know, tell me your story. And one of the things we know is that as human beings, we have hundreds of stories. Some we tell one person, some we never tell, some that, you know, we might want to make public. And a number of times I've seen situations where people with disabilities have been invited to share a story publicly, and what happens is they tell the whole story, and in that process re-traumatize themselves, and also people aren't quite sure how to use that story to make a difference or make change. So this is a workshop where you look at a story and then you work out how to tell it in a way that if you're with a group, you know, some politicians or senior public servants, that when you finish the story, they are clear about what needs to happen. So we've got that coming up in beginning in the next week, end of next week. Fantastic. And we're just finalising the 3 projects for the year. It's been a pretty challenging time with COVID, but it's pretty amazing what we've also been able to do. Like we got the funding in March, and we have interviewed staff online, employed staff online, and everything's online.
It is indeed, absolutely. But I mean, it's certainly opening, I guess, accessibility to a lot more people, which is fantastic to be able to undertake your workshops and also, you know, resources. Can you tell us more about the projects, or are they still? They're
still in the pipeline, so we're not really ready to look at that, but we are, yeah. So maybe that's for another chat.
A follow-up, definitely. Now, in terms of the workshops, are they available for anyone? Are there any kind of prerequisites? How does that work?
Well, they're available for Tasmanians primarily.
Yeah.
No, there aren't. Just that you have an interest in that. Yeah. And, you know, last year we had a couple of young people come along who were 16 and do workshops. We've had people come who, you know, never done a workshop before. It's very inclusive.
I like the workshop idea. I think that would be break for community areas as well, because I work with a lot of the communities here in WA. And what we face is like a lot of people that go and tell their story. They get parents, especially, they get emotional and they add personal details into it, which is probably, you know, where NDIS would not fund those areas. It's just getting that right terminology.
It is, and I think too that, you know, with the Royal Commission, it's like, how do you, one of the most important things is there's the telling what happened, but one of the things that's really important is being able to tell the Royal Commission what should happen. You know, what should happen now. Because that's where our voices will have the most powerful impact. We have a powerful impact personally by telling it, collectively by telling it, but then what we want is that people, you know, the commissioners are able to write recommendations, or in fact we have the recommendations when we, you know, if we present or if we write something. And I think that gives people a sense of movement rather than, you know, and there was an experience where I saw someone tell a story which was very, very traumatic, and there was a sense that that person had often been asked to tell that story. And what we know from trauma is that that would just be re-traumatizing that person. But by doing a workshop like this, then they've actually got skills in which they can say what they want to say, not what they feel, not what a person feels they have to say, but also in a way that has an impact that is useful.
Definitely there'd be the drive for change. Use their voice to drive change. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Exactly. And we want to, I guess our bigger goal is to see people with disabilities everywhere. Like when we say, okay, we have, you know, close to a quarter of the population who have a disability in Tasmania, a quarter of the population has a disability. And then we say, okay, now disabilities are visible, not visible. Sometimes they're more visible than others. But still, if we said to the Tasmanian, and I did this in the workshop in work last year with the broader community, if this is the number, where is everyone? Why aren't you seeing people everywhere? And it's like sometimes you might be, but you're not aware. But also you know, we need to be having people not just participate in the community, but contribute and add value. And that's our goal, you know, really, is to have people with disabilities everywhere in valued roles, you know, contributing, because people really want, like I said before earlier on about problem solving, people are able to problem solve, you know, issues, add value, you know, be constructive.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Tanya, did you have any more questions for Fiona?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Fiona, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute
No
pleasure.
worries.
I'll make sure
lovely.
that
Thank you.
any resources that you have around your workshops, please do share them with us, and we'll make sure that they get circulated. And yeah, we'll hopefully do a follow-up once you've got your projects up and running. It'll be lovely to hear about those as well.
That'd be great, and I'll put your email in our database so that you get information.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
all right, all the best.
Thanks.
Bye.